Welcome to my channel. I'm your friend, and here we don't just listen to stories. We feel them. If you love mystery, thrillers, and emotional journeys, then you're in the right place. So let's begin today's story. Secrets Beneath Ridgeport. It was night. The ocean breeze moved softly, and the small coastal town of Ridgeport looked quiet as always. But that night, the town was listening. The dogs were silent, the streets were empty, and the distant waves sounded as if they were hiding a secret. People often joked, "Ridgeport doesn't sleep, it just waits." And that night, it felt like the town really was waiting. Near an old white church building, police lights flashed, yellow tape, worried faces, whispers. How did this happen? Who did it? Inside, Detective Sarah Hale walked slowly into the room, where everyone's eyes were fixed. On the floor, a man was lying unconscious. No signs of a fight, no blood. Everything looked strangely clean. Sarah put on her gloves, bent down, and whispered, "Name?" An officer answered, "Michael Turner, 32, youth counselor at the church." Sarah scanned the room carefully. An open notebook on the table, children's drawings on the wall, the window, locked from the inside. It looks like he just collapsed. But Sarah's instincts refused to accept it. Something was wrong. Very wrong. By morning, the news had spread through the town. Church counselor mysteriously found unconscious. Prayers, fear, questions, and at the same time, on the other side of Ridgeport, a boy, Evan Miller, sat by the shore staring at the waves. Restlessness was written all over his face. His phone buzzed in his pocket. An unknown message. "Don't say anything, or you're next." Evan shut the screen with shaking hands. His breathing grew heavy, and in his eyes was the fear of someone who had already lost something once before. That evening, people gathered outside the church. Pastor Jonathan spoke softly. "Michael was like family to us all. We need to pray for him." But Detective Sarah was somewhere else in her mind. She wasn't just looking at the crowd. She was reading faces. Who looked too nervous? Who looked too calm? Whose eyes were hiding the truth? Then she noticed a girl, Lily Carter, sweat on her forehead, tears in her eyes, but her hands weren't shaking. Sarah approached her. "You knew Michael?" Lily nodded. "He helped me, but last night..." She stopped. Sarah said gently, "Speaking the truth is always cheaper than hiding it." Lily pressed her lips together, then whispered, "Last night, I saw someone outside the church. Black jacket. He was arguing with Michael." Sarah's heart skipped slightly. "Did you see the face?" Lily shook her head. "No." Then hesitated and added, "I felt like he knew Michael." By nightfall, Michael still hadn't regained consciousness. Machines beeped quietly in the hospital room. The doctor said, brain activity unstable, but no physical trauma. Only one question spun in Sarah's mind. How does someone collapse like this, without being touched? Then the doctor added softly, "The strange part is, we found signs, as if he had been terrified beyond control." Sarah frowned. "Fear?" The doctor nodded. "Sometimes the brain shuts down from shock, as if he saw something he couldn't handle." Sarah looked out into the dark night beyond the corridor window. The sky was black, and the wind felt like it was whispering. At that same moment, Evan stood outside his house by the sea. He placed his hand on the door, but didn't go in. His mother opened it, smiling. "You're late. Everything okay?" Evan forced a smile. "Yeah, everything's fine, Mom." But his eyes said something else. Nothing was fine. Later that night, he sat in his room, staring into the darkness. Another message came from the same unknown number. Michael fell. Next step, soon. Evan's hands trembled. He threw the phone away and whispered to himself, "I didn't do anything wrong. I was just there." But his conscience screamed, "You know the truth." Meanwhile, Detective Sarah was going through old case files, church records, community projects, reports of missing teens. And suddenly, her eyes stopped on one file, Ridgeport Youth Counseling Confidential Complaints. A file that had been closed years ago, with no explanation. Sarah froze. She whispered, "Someone stopped the story on purpose." She looked at Michael's photograph again. A calm face, a kind smile, and slowly she realized there was too much silence around this man. And where there is too much silence, there is always a truth buried underneath. Night deepened. The town slept, but 3 people stayed awake. Detective Sarah, chasing the truth. Evan, trapped in fear and secrets. And someone else? Someone hiding in the shadows? Someone who always knew what would happen next. He turned off his room light, looked out the window, smiled faintly. and whispered, "The game has only begun." Ridgeport fell quiet again, but this time, the silence was not just silence. It was a warning. The rain had stopped, but the same heavy silence still hung over the town. Michael had returned home, yet sleep seemed to have run far from his eyes. Outside the window, there was darkness, and inside his mind, only one question kept circling. What exactly did Evan see that night? He slowly opened the notebook lying on the table. Inside were the same things Evan had quietly told him. A small town, a few people, and that place, the one nobody wanted to go near. But the most frightening part was this. Evan was afraid to say a name. He kept saying, "It wasn't my fault, but if I tell the truth, everything will be over." Michael knew one thing for sure. Fear doesn't grow on its own. Someone had made him afraid, and that same person was probably still watching him. In the silence of the night, he heard a faint sound outside, as if someone had stopped in front of the house and stood there for a while. Michael's heartbeat quickened. He walked to the window, but outside, the street was completely empty. Still, he could feel it. Someone knew where he lived, and maybe they were watching every move he made. He picked up his phone and called Evan. The phone kept ringing, but no one answered. A cold wave of fear spread through his chest. Was Evan safe, or was it already too late? Michael made up his mind. There would be no more half-truths. He had to reach the truth, even if that meant questioning his own town. He didn't know that this path would lead him back to the very place where all the fear had begun. And there, something was waiting for him. Something that had kept the people of the town silent for years. As morning broke, the town looked normal again. But for Michael, everything had changed. He went straight to the old community library. It was the one place where the town's old records, newspapers, reports, and case files were all carefully preserved. The moment he walked inside, the faint smell of old paper made him feel uneasy. The elderly librarian at the desk took off her glasses when she saw him. "It's been a while, Michael. What are you looking for?" In a quiet voice, he replied, "Old cases, something from around 5 years ago, an incident where someone's name was buried." The librarian lowered her eyes for a second, as if she already knew what he was asking about. Then she said, "Go to that section. But remember, some truths are forgotten on purpose." Michael couldn't smile. Turning back now was impossible. He opened the files. Yellowed pages, blurred photos, small clipped articles. One headline caught his eye. "Teen boy injured in mysterious accident. No witnesses." The boy's face in the photo was barely recognizable, but the name was clear. Evan Stone. Michael's hands froze. As he kept reading, things slowly began to make sense. Evan hadn't been injured by an accident. Someone had pushed him. And that same night, many things were accidentally left out of the report. Someone had deliberately made the case look smaller than it was. Michael was about to close the file when he suddenly felt someone behind him. He turned slowly. At the doorway stood a tall man, his face half hidden in shadow. In a cold voice, the man said, "Reading old cases isn't a very good habit, Michael." Michael narrowed his eyes. "You know me?" The man gave a faint smile. "In this town, everyone knows how far each person is allowed to go." Michael tucked the file under his arm. "If you know the truth, then tell me what happened to Evan." The man stepped closer. "He's still alive." Only because he stopped asking questions. For a moment, the room went silent. Michael realized this wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. In a steady voice, he answered, "And I'm not someone who stops halfway." A hard look flashed in the man's eyes. "Then be ready, because from now on, it won't just be the town against you, it will be the people." He turned and walked out with heavy steps. Michael stood there, frozen. His heart was racing, but his mind had never felt clearer. Evan's fear, the silence of the people, the missing reports, they were all parts of the same story. And that story had only one name, the truth, a truth someone had been burying for years. As Michael left the library, he whispered to himself, "If they started this game, I'll be the one to finish it." What he didn't know was the next step would take him straight to the one person whose name people were afraid to even whisper in this town. By evening, Michael went straight to the hospital. The old file said Yvonne had been admitted there for months. In the hospital corridor, the smell of disinfectant and the slow beep-beep of machines made everything feel strangely heavy. The nurse at the reception asked, "Who do you want to see?" He replied quietly, "Ivan Stone, if he still comes here." The nurse checked the computer, then nodded slightly. He comes once a month. His appointment ended 5 minutes ago. Michael stopped in his tracks. Is there any way I can meet him? The nurse looked up. Be careful. Ever since the accident, he's suspicious of every stranger. The next moment, the creaking sound of a wheelchair echoed outside the hospital. A thin boy, old scars across his face, fear constantly trembling in his eyes. Michael walked closer and gently said, Ivan? The boy flinched, as if even hearing that name hurt him. I don't talk to anyone, he said coldly and turned his wheelchair. Michael stepped in front of him. I didn't come to save you. I came to understand what really happened to you that night. Ivan's hand trembled. He stayed silent for a few seconds, then whispered, Who sent you? No one, Michael said. I'm searching for the truth myself. Ivan looked around nervously, as if someone might be listening. If I say anything, his voice cracked, they'll find out. Michael leaned down, looking straight into his eyes. Who are they? A soft breeze blew. Leaves rustled. Ivan pressed his lips together, then almost whispered, The good people of this town, the ones who never get caught. He took a deep breath. That night, I wasn't alone. The push I got wasn't from just one person. There were 4 of them, and with them, someone in uniform. A chill ran through Michael. The police. Ivan didn't nod, but his silence was the answer. A moment later, he continued, They told me, if I wanted to stay alive, call it an accident. His eyes filled. I tried to tell the truth, but the report disappeared. The doctor was replaced, and I had to stay quiet. Michael realized that it wasn't just fear. It was a kind of prison he had carried on his shoulders for years. Do you know any of their names? With trembling lips, Ivan said, One of them, I only recognized his voice. He often gives speeches at town events. People call him a hero. Faces flashed through Michael's mind. The mayor, the police advisor, the foundation chairman? Ivan whispered again, If anything happens to me, everything is written in my files. I never trusted the law to protect me. Michael promised, I won't let anything happen to you. Ivan gave a faint smile, as if trusting someone for the first time. Just then, across the street, a black car rolled to a slow stop. Tinted windows. Engine off, but the heat said it had just arrived. Michael felt eyes watching them. Ivan looked at the car, and his face went pale. They're here, his voice broke. Michael pulled the wheelchair back. Let's go inside. But Ivan shook his head. No, if I run, it's over. He grabbed Michael's hand. You leave. Find the truth. And if someday you hear I'm gone, his eyes glimmered. Just know, someone finally got scared of the truth. Michael's throat tightened, but he steadied himself and slowly stepped away. The black car waited a while, then moved on silently. No window lowered, no face appeared. But the fear in Ivan's eyes grew deeper than before. Michael looked up at the sky, so clear, and yet darkness hid behind everything. One thing was absolutely clear now. This wasn't just an old case. This was a network, built on fear, money, and power, and anyone who touched its walls already knew their fate. Michael made a quiet decision in his heart. There was no turning back now, because the truth was going to surface, and when it did, many names were going to fall at once. The next day, the town looked calm, but underneath, something was shifting. Rumors were spreading. The police were reopening 2 old cases. People whispered in coffee shops, outside schools, in office corridors. Maybe a big name is finally going to be exposed. Michael heard it all, but he knew one thing well. Rumors exist to hide the truth, not reveal it. He went straight to the police station. The officer at reception hardened his face. The moment he saw him, You again? Michael replied quietly, I just need to talk to Detective Avery. A few minutes later, Detective Avery appeared in the hallway, files in his hand, that same tired look in his eyes. What do you have this time? Michael took a deep breath. Ivan told me everything. It wasn't an accident. Avery stopped walking. If that's true, he said slowly, this won't just be attempted murder. It could shake the whole town. Michael stepped closer, and a police officer was involved. Silence fell over the room. Avery closed the door, pulled the blinds down, and spoke softly. Name? Michael shook his head. Not yet. Because that name is inside your department. Avery studied him for a moment, then placed his hand on the desk. All right, one chance. If you're lying, I'll arrest you myself. He opened a file. There were things in your mother's case that always felt wrong. Like what? Michael asked. Your father's testimony, Avery said. He recited every line like it was rehearsed. He slid a paper across the table, and this missing call records. Only one number was blocked. Michael read it. Beside the number, it said, "Unknown internal line." Something heavy dropped inside his chest. "You mean from inside the police station?" Avery nodded. Yes, someone called her just before that night, and that call was erased forever. They both went quiet. Then Avery whispered, "And now Ivan. Same pattern, same fear." Michael said slowly, "So these people don't just commit crimes, they write the story around them." Avery picked up his phone. "We need a warrant." Right then, the station door swung open. Victor Hart, the mayor's advisor, walked in. Expensive suit, calm, polished smile. "Detective Avery," he said politely, "I hear you've taken a bit too much interest in the past." Avery kept his face steady. "This is a police matter, Mr. Hart." Victor's smile grew colder. "Police, yes, but also the town. And the town does not want old wounds reopened." He looked at Michael. "And you, perhaps think about your family's reputation." He paused, eyes chillingly empty. "Sometimes peace is more important than truth." He turned and left. The door closed, and the room seemed to drop in temperature. Michael whispered, "He knows me." Avery replied quietly, "Worse, he knows what we're about to do." He took out a small USB drive. "My personal copy. 5 names, 4 funding records, and 1 missing witness." Michael grabbed the USB. "Who's the witness?" Avery said, "The old mechanic from your neighborhood. He saw a car go toward Lake Road that night, and the next day, that same car was sitting in our evidence locker." Michael's heartbeat quickened. "Where is he now?" Avery's voice grew heavy. "Gone. 3 years ago." Outside, sirens wailed. Another case was coming in. Avery spoke quickly. "Don't go straight home, and don't ask your father anything today." Michael frowned. "Why?" Avery answered, "Because I think someone's listening to everything you say." Michael stepped outside. Dark clouds gathered overhead. The air smelled like rain. He gripped the USB in his pocket. He knew the game had just become deadly, and anyone who got too close to the truth would either survive or be erased from the story forever. It was 2 a.m. The town was asleep, but sleep had completely vanished from Ria's eyes. She kept thinking about that diary, the one that spoke about dark shadows and the night that disappeared. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "What you're searching for, you'll find. But waking the truth always comes with a price." Rhea's heartbeat quickened. At the same moment, dogs started barking outside, and she heard slow footsteps on the street. She walked to the window. At the corner of the lane, a strange silhouette was standing, silent, watching her. And in the next second, the shadow disappeared. By morning, Rhea was back with the police files. She read everything again, carefully. For the first time, she noticed a common connection. Every incident was tied to the same night. She understood. None of this was random. Someone planned this very carefully. But the moment she wrote it down in her notebook, the door behind her creaked open. Rhea turned, and the color drained from her face. Standing at the door was the same stranger, the one she had seen in the shadows last night. He smiled and said, "You've come too far now. There's no turning back." Rhea tried to steady herself. Her voice was trembling. "Who are you?" The stranger spoke calmly. "I'm not your enemy, but if you manage to understand this story completely, the people you're fighting against won't let you live." He handed Rhea an old USB drive and whispered, "Watch it only at night, and watch it alone." Before she could say anything, he vanished, as if he had never been there. Rhea's heart was pounding, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. That night, she turned on her laptop and inserted the USB. Old CCTV recordings appeared on the screen. Frame by frame, they showed the same place, the place where all the strange events had begun. But the most terrifying part was this. In every single video, the same person appeared again and again, and that person lived in Rhea's childhood neighborhood. At the end of the video, a message popped up. "This is only the beginning. If you open file 2, your belief will shatter." Rhea's hands turned cold. If she opened the next file, nothing would ever be the same again. She whispered to herself, "There's no point turning back now. I have to know the truth." She clicked on file 2, and suddenly, the power went out. The room was swallowed by darkness. Only silence remained, until from somewhere inside that darkness, slow, deliberate footsteps began to move, as if someone was already in the room with her. The night had cast its dark veil over Ravenwood. Thick clouds, gusty winds, and every tree seemed to be watching someone. Rhea held the USB tightly in her hand. Her heart raced. Every frame, every video, every note, it felt as if someone was playing a game with her, anticipating her every move. But now she had made up her mind. No matter the truth, it would come out. She sat at her laptop and clicked on the second file. Another video opened. The location was the same. Black Pine Forest, the stone circle. The footage showed a silhouette slowly approaching the camera. The crunch of footsteps, the rasp of breaths, and suddenly a face appeared on the screen. Richard Walker. Rhea's hands trembled. Her father, the man she had always looked up to, now stood before her as the truth itself. In the video, Richard whispered to himself, "They think I'm calm, but I've seen it all. I controlled everything. Claire's disappearance, all of it by my command. And now Lena's safety is also my responsibility, but under one condition." Rhea gasped, "Father, why this?" She whispered to herself. The next frame revealed Lena, alive but terrified, bound in the shadows. Then a message appeared in the video. "If Ethan and Rhea discover the truth, only then will the game end. Otherwise, everything is lost." Rhea checked her phone. Another message from an unknown number appeared. "Don't trust. Password 0421, or Lena will be lost forever." She entered the password immediately and unlocked the USB. Inside was an interior plan, showing the stone circle, Black Pine Forest, and old buildings. Rhea called Ethan immediately. Ethan listened, then said, "We'll end this. I'll get Lena out safely." "And Richard, did you really do all of this?" Tears welled in Rhea's eyes. "We just need one chance." Together, they set out into the darkness of the night. Car lights cut through the shadows as they headed toward the forest. Every step, every sound, every shadow, fraught with danger. As they entered the woods, Ethan heard a faint voice. "Ethan, I'm here." And it was Lena. Ethan ran toward her. Lena said, trembling, "Be careful. He's watching. Always." At that moment, a silhouette appeared near the stone circle. Richard Walker. Ethan screamed, "Why, Dad? Why everything?" Richard spoke softly. "Because the truth is never easy. Sometimes the ones closest to you are the greatest threats." Ethan stepped forward. Lena grabbed his hand. "Just trust. That will get us out." Suddenly, flashlights pierced the forest. Detective Avery and a team of officers arrived surrounding Richard. But Richard whispered one final time, "Be ready to face the truth." Every secret eventually reveals itself. Lena and Ethan emerged safely. Rhea, watching from afar, took a deep breath. The morning sun rose over the city. Ravenwood seemed calm once more, but no one knew what had happened that night. Ethan looked at Lena and whispered, "Now we know the truth. No secret can hide between us anymore." Lena smiled and nodded, and in the quiet of the city, a distant whisper floated, "Ravenwood is always listening." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button. Share it, so others can experience this journey too. And yes, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next stories are going to be even more thrilling.